Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so let's discuss this map. I'll do the characteristic, put my ship out there. And for those of you guys who are not familiar with Zatchats, when we talk about maps here, we've got Clan Battle loaded up, and we'll talk about general positioning for your battleships, your destroyers, and your cruisers on each side. So since I spawned on the north side here, let's just talk about it from the north side first. Destroyers have a tough go in this map, in my opinion. A is a death trap for destroyers. Generally speaking, you can do it, but you want your Smolensk or Ragnar to go into here. You want something that's got a heal. You could try to get a daring through it if you want as well. But the thing is, you want to be kiting away position. So you want to have your nose out, and you've got a couple of choices. You can try to have your nose out like right here. Might be easiest. You can try over here as well, but basically you want to have your nose out so that if you get radared, you can hit the W key 4 times, your engine boost, and then you can try to curl around the island here for safety. Okay? Now when the radar is done, you go back into A, rinse and repeat, serves 10. If you're a destroyer on the other flank, your job, of course, is to grab B as quickly as possible. Once you've grabbed B, you've got a couple of choices. And this is where it's up to your team and what they want to do. Choice, the first is to head towards the 9 line and scout ahead for your team. Choice, the second, is to go into the middle and again scout for your team. If you go into the middle, you will get earlier spots of the enemy that's heading towards the Charlie cap, their cruisers especially, which might come in handy because you do have battleships back here that, maybe can smack a broadside cruiser. So, but it is also riskier because if you go too far and you've got like a Petro or a Moskva at that island there, then that causes, radar and, death. So, something to consider when you are going out there. It really depends on what your caller wants you to do. Now, let's talk about cruisers, because there's really not much else to say about in this particular map for destroyers. If you've got a second destroyer, you can either send the third destroyer. You can either send the third destroyer to A or to B, but the idea is you want that destroyer to be with your other one so that together they can overwhelm whatever they run into, right? Okay, let's talk about the most difficult class to place on this map, and that's going to be your cruisers. Generally speaking, you're going to send cruisers to both flanks. In general, your faster, more kitier ships will go towards B cap, and your tankier, more bow-on ships will go towards A. Again, that's in general. Now, interestingly enough, this island here, I'm trying to highlight this for a reason. This is a really good, powerful spot for a Salem or a Des Moines. Or a Nevsky, because your radar will cover C-cap. The problem is that you need somebody else to shoot whatever you're going to detect. So you have to be considerate of that. Putting yourself there does take your guns out of the battle for a little while, but that information radar can be very helpful. In general, you're going to put like your Zaus and your Venezias all the way out to, the 8, 9, 10 line flank, and you're going to go out that direction. Let's talk about the other side of the map with cruisers. So this side of the map is kind of a challenge for cruisers because to get to this particular island here is very difficult, and you're not going to do that initially. We're talking about initial positions, right? So where you want to go at the start of the battle. Now, I see a lot of cruisers, radar cruisers that is, head towards this island here. This is actually a really good island for a Worcester, or Smolensk if you've got one, I guess, because you can arc the shells over the relatively flat part of the island and you won't be detected doing so. And you can also play on this side. You could do a Des Moines over here too, I suppose. This area here, I've seen a lot of ships. I've done this myself where I'll pull up and with radar or whatnot, I can shoot over this flat part of the island as well. But the other area that I see that's very popular with especially Russian cruisers like Moskva is right here. You've got this lip that you can duck into if you need to. right? You can back into here and you're extremely safe. And then you can pop a radar for anybody that might be coming down this flank with you. So generally speaking, if you're on the south spawn and you've got radar cruiser enemies, you're going to want to be thinking about those enemies being positioned at the Foxtrot 3 island, the Charlie, what is it? Sorry, Delta 7 island, like that. Maybe Echo 4. Okay. Battleships. This map is relatively small, so you can go for cross shots with battleships, and you should. Generally speaking, you can put one battleship over here, Delta 3. That gives you pretty good shots on Charlie. And then the other opportunity is you can put a battleship off on this flank to get shots towards the south end of A. All right. It's up to you which ones you put where. But, you know. Can anyone actually hear Pretzel Rocks? I can. It's very quiet, but I can turn it up if you guys want to hear the music better. But that's the north side spawn, in my opinion. I don't see a reason to worry about everything else. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Let's talk now about the other one. No, you don't miss it? Okay. Because I'm hearing it at low volumes. All right, so if you are going to be playing in the south spawn here in a destroyer, the same thing is very true what I said before at the start of the match for destroyers. On this side, you go into CCAP, and then you have the decision to make. Do you go into the middle to spot, or do you go up towards the flank here and go around? Totally up to you. The other position, of course, is going into A cap. Now, in general, you are better protected going into A from the south side, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is you've got this island right here that I'm looking at that is a very powerful island for cruisers. We'll talk about that in a moment. So you'll have good support from cruisers. Also, the relatively safe island here is pretty close in to the edge of the cap, meaning you can get in and you can get to the safe island relatively quick. So if you get the south spawn, really you should have an easier time getting into A and grabbing it, in my opinion. SF, thank you very much for the sub, dude. 28 months, over 2 years of followage. Thank you, my dude. And I hope you're having a great Sunday, by the way. Good seeing you in battle earlier, by the way. Cruisers. Let's talk about cruisers. Most pivotal part of this map, cruisers, radar cruisers especially. I've seen a lot of Petropavlovsks, or, yes, mini gifted subs. I think SFNL is still #1 on the gifted sub charts. Thank you very much, dude. A very strong position for a Petro or a Moskva is going to be right here. You can radar overwatch the entire cap. You can get your guns into it if you need it, and most of the time, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to see a Moskva or something on the other side of this peninsula here in Foxtrot 3, and you can shoot them with your guns and pow pow. So that's kind of nifty. Failing that, another good position could be around this island. This is a really good Worcester Island. Oh, gifting a sub for Kadu. There you go, SF. Thank you, dude. So a Worcester or Spammy ship can go there. Same thing from what I talked about at the north. This island is a very strong island for a Moskva, or, you know, basically just your Russian cruiser, right? Because you can also radar and you can cover anything that's mid. Alternately, you can go over here, but because of this town, it's a little bit more exposed. So I don't like playing a cruiser at that island necessarily. If you can take it, getting to this island is very strong. You can bow point this way. That allows you to help cover A, but also cover whatever is north of you over there too. Okay. Des Moines is very powerful there, but that's more mid-game. That takes a while to get to that position and to develop it. You could also play a Des Moines like here. it's a pretty powerful spot because you can arc over that town. You could play Des Moines here as well, although your escape routes are much more limited, and you are more open to flanking shots from battleships and that sort of thing. So you got to watch out for it. Over on this side, you've got a lot of little islands that you can play in. It might be good for Des Moines. Generally speaking, I like putting a radar cruiser like here, maybe moving farther up just to get into position. Like maybe right over here is pretty good. So that's a good one to do as well. And I find that one's nice because you can kind of shoot anything that's to the north, and then you've also got this island shield. I talk about that in a lot of my Zat chats because that island shield really does help. It is very, very advantageous to be using that shield to basically protect your sides, because your sides are going to be very vulnerable. Okay, like I said before, up at this point here, it's still pretty powerful. You've got Des Moines, Salem possibly as radar cruisers that can then come around the island and surprise things if you need to. But Haven, I find, is a very static map. It really depends on cross shots on that. Speaking of which, from the battleships, again, very similar spawns because this is a mostly mirrored map. If you are the battleship that's heading towards Charlie, your goal is to look for cross shots on this island, maybe on this island here, maybe over here as well, but this is going to be harder to get the angle, right? And then if you're a battleship that's over on the A side, similarly, you're going to be looking for cross shots north into B cap. So your battleship players, whoever's playing battleship, you have to be expecting to be playing longer range shooty games. So you have to be comfortable with that. All right, so here's again the long range shooty shot from the battleship to the south. And same thing, you don't want to go too far to completely commit to one flank in a battleship, but you want to make your presence known, of course, and you want to be in positions where you can get those cross shots and punish a cruiser. One cruiser punish, even if it's not a kill, could be enough to turn the tide to that particular flank. So keep that in mind. Chat, any other questions that you have on Haven? What I talked about here could very well apply to random battles as well, except for the couple of differences. In random battles, typically you have a lot of long-range torpedo spamming ships like Hollands and Shimikazes that like to go off to the flanks, right, and torpedo up and down here. So if you're a battleship or cruiser player that doesn't like torpedoes, I recommend not going there originally. The map rewards a lot of careful play, but I do feel it's a bit on the unbalanced side. I think that the South Spawn or the Bravo team has a bigger advantage over on this particular side of the map. So there you have it. Last chance for questions, ladies and gentlemen. If not, we'll go into talking about the dev blog, because there's some interesting stuff in there. Okay. Well, it sounds like you guys are good. Thank you for listening. If you've got any questions, those of you that are watching this later on YouTube, please post any questions that you've got. If you've got a special part of the map that you really enjoy, that's kind of your favorite go-to map, feel free to post that in the comments section, because I'm sure that'll help other players as well if they're struggling on this particular map. All right. So now let's change over to talking about the dev blog.